Alright, for my application, there's 3 separate sections of rings. This bottom one will be your oil control ring, or your wave ring. This second one will be your mid ring, or your second compression ring. And this top one will be your top compression ring. All your rings are split, so for your oil control ring, you'll put your split in. Just flex it around like that. Then on the top and bottom of that wave ring, you'll have these 2 extremely thin rings that don't need to be gapped or anything. They just go on the top and bottom of that wave ring. And I like to offset everything, so where I've got that one lined up with my pin, I'll line this one up with my side skirt. And then where I lined that bottom one up with my side skirt, I'll line the other one up with the other side. Put that one on top. Now for my second ring, I've got a little tip here, or a little pinpoint that always faces towards the top. Some rings will also have top specified on them, or potentially an arrow. I forget which is which, but one of these rings, either the mid ring or the top ring, is actually cast, and so you don't want to twist that on. You want to use a ring tool and put it on. So now where I've got this gap lined up with that pin, I'm going to spin it around and put this gap lined up with my opposite side. Okay, just like that. And then again for the top ring, I'll flip to the other side. This one is completely square, so it's non-directional. And I'll just put that one right on top. Anytime you're installing new pistons or piston rings or anything, you need to make sure your bores are super clean. Even if you didn't do a hone or a fresh cross hatch in them like I did. Gotta make sure everything's nice and clean before reassembly. If one rag isn't about this clean after wiping all 6 cylinders, you still have more to go. Keep wiping. Now all my cylinders are completely clean. First I need to clean off the crankshaft, and then I'm ready to start inserting my pistons and torquing down my caps. Alright guys, I just used some of this ultra slick Permatex. It's $5 on Amazon. I just put on a plastic glove and wiped it all in my cylinders all the way down to get them primed. I have to add a bit more, but put it in my cylinders to get them primed. And now I'm going to go ahead and use my clean tank to clean up these pistons, and then as soon as they're clean, I'm going to put a little bit on each skirt, a little bit around the edges, and some inside my tool so that it's primed and ready to go. I'll start installing pistons. I'm going to start on cylinder 1 and cylinder 2 right here, and I've got those all the way towards the bottom so that when I'm putting in the pistons, I make sure I don't hit the bearing journal while I'm doing it.
Because of the work that we did in the past, man, we went to hours, you barely got rest. So I get the realm and we didn't finesse. So I got the feelings that we might be next. Cause when we go in, we win in the match. When we go in, we win in the match. So that's how we do, cause we be the best. We be the best, best. Yeah, we be the best. Whoa. Yeah, we be the best, best. We be the best. Hey, yeah, we be the best, best. Hey, we be the best. Yo, you wanna come on a test? Whoa, you want to see we the best? Hey. You don't see that we're the best kid, so I suggest you never really come and test it. But otherwise, I will smack your face like Michael Jordan does with a ball in the basket. Oh damn kid, but you didn't expect it. You never really thought that this could just happen, but now really come on and we put
Alright guys, these are what the bearing halves look like. This is your oil port hole. You need to line that up with the hole on your rod. And then these are the tabs that you're going to align inside your rod when you're inserting these bearings. As you can see on these bearings, there's an STD stamped on them. Stands for standard. These are not oversized or undersized, they're just standard replacement bearings. After you get your stuff out of the wash tank, go ahead and air it off. The main part with your rod is you want to make sure that the bearing journals are completely dry. You don't want anything on those, no contaminant, no oil, no cleaning fluid, nothing. So now that my old cap is cleaned and completely dry, I can go ahead and install my cleaned and completely dry bearing, lining up this tang on the bearing with that groove. My caps of my bearing don't have any oil holes or anything, so that hole doesn't matter. On the piston side, the actual rod side, there's my oil hole right there, and there's my groove. If I line up that point on my bearing, if I line up that point with my groove on my rod, you can see my oil hole is going to be lined up. That's the way you want it. You want to make sure that your bearing race is right in the center of your rod. As you can see, my bearing's nice and lined up with that oil hole. So since these are locked into the rod and need to stay in place and have to be totally dry, totally clean, the inside of this race, where it's going to be going around the crankshaft, that's where you need to apply more of your assembly lube so that it slides right and nice on startup. You also want to apply a little bit of this to the sides of your caps and the sides of your rod to make sure that there's no additional friction with the crankshaft when you go to start it up. It's just a thin application. That's really all you need. Then you're going to want to apply some to your skirt. Make sure that it doesn't have any additional friction. Everything about assembling the engine is about reducing friction. You'll feel this get nice and smooth as you apply this stuff, and that's when you know it's filled all of the small scratches and anything that's going to cause you an issue, potentially. That's where you want to be. Now before you go installing this, make sure all your ring gaps are still where you want them to be. It looks like all mine are. Cylinder 1 is back in the car. You can see clear out those cylinders still. Make sure you torque these to spec on this 3.5 liter 2008 Dodge Charger. Do that to both of them first, and then an additional quarter turn. If you don't have a fancy digital torque wrench that does degrees, you can pick up a cheap angle tool from O'Reilly or Harbor Freight. All my pistons are back in their bores. I just need to clean off the residue on my surfaces for my heads. Then I can put the new head gasket on and get my heads in and torque them down. There's a learning curve.